y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Two Scrippers, One Motherfucking Pole. It's your girl, Mango, aka the real mistress, goddess, princess. If you're new here, welcome. This is where I talk about whatever the hell I want. You get what the fuck I give you, and if you are returning, welcome back. Um, I have a lot. I'ma just be honest. I have a lot. I have 4 pages of notes this time. And so we'll see how much I can get through, how much I can say on topic. Because I definitely want to recap some of the things I talked about in episode 60, which if you haven't watched anything from this season, go back because and now that I'm doing 2 weeks at a time, so much shit be happening. Like y'all, if you're an OG, it's always so much going on in my life. There's so much all the time. And so now that I'm taking these 2 weeks, it works because I have more time to really process and see how things just continue to play out. But then it's also like, damn, what all do I come back and tell you all about? So, first, Footnight recap. So, I went to, for the last episode, I was getting ready to leave my house to go to Footnight Baltimore, and then I had Footnight Akron, and I did Footnight PA, and I had a fucking ball. So, the stinky foot party, y'all know I said in the last episode that my feet don't be stinking, but I was like, I want to make some money. Funny enough, I didn't. So, stinky feet are a very specific fetish. So, the stinky foot portion, um, not a lot of people come to that. So, the Baltimore one, the day before, this was back in February, and we're like, basically, it's been a month since I last recorded, actually. But, anywho, um, so Stinky Foot Baltimore, the day before in Maryland, it had snowed. So that ended up having like, it really wasn't that bad. Like it was a fake little snowstorm in Maryland, but other parts that were more northern, like New York, had more snow and it was a little bit more severe. So a lot of people didn't really make it. So I think like it was only supposed to be like 3 people that signed up for the Stinky Foot portion, and only one person showed up. He was like, I'm not missing it. So yeah, it was in a strip club. It was interesting being my first one. Because any room that I go into, I like to observe. So me and BB, like we sat in a corner and was just kind of like watching everything. BB was running around. It's so funny because each party that I went to, I will be talking to a patron who this is his first time at a foot party. He's just like, yeah, I found it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm interested in feet and this, that, and the third. So I'm like talking to them, just trying to see, like, okay, well, how do you like to worship feet? Because some people like to kiss feet. Some people like to massage feet. Some people like to tickle feet. Some people just want to be trampled and stepped on. Like they just want to be around your feet, right? So I always ask, like, what is your ideal interaction with feet? So I'll be talking to a newbie, and then you just and they're always like, "Oh, I just want to kiss them or lick them or da da da." And then in the corner of my eye, you'll see Mistress Bad Bitch full force stomping on somebody's face. I mean, this girl is like jumping up and down, stepping on somebody's face, and she has this very sadistic giggle. So it's I'll be talking to this person who's just like, oh, I just want to sniff your feet. And then you see her just like stepping on somebody's face. It's so funny. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry if you're scared. But yeah, so back to Footnight Baltimore. It was like, it was a little bit, I don't know if intimidating is the word that I want to use because I wasn't intimidated. I think that, so if y'all been here, y'all know Mango, I was a horrible stripper. I tried it twice, both times. Like, the strip club is not for me. And one of those big parts is that, like, you do have to engage the patrons by talking to them, going up to them. And small talk just outside of like spicy settings is not my forte, especially in a strip club, because my ideology is like, you here to see some ass. I got lots of ass, baby. Okay. And you here to spend some money. So, like, if I come up to you, you need to give me some money. Like, come on now. But like, it's a little bit, for some people, it's more about the fantasy or whatever. Some people just really want to come and pay the cover fee and just see ass and titties, but not actually pay nothing or sit at the bar all day. Or like, I had this one dude, the second time I tried the strip club, he legit was there to watch the game. Like, he was not paying attention to nobody. Um, so that was like a really big hurdle for me, especially because the way strip clubs are glamorized in the media. And my first night at the strip club, it was literally like, I was on stage for probably 2 minutes just playing around with my friends, and then three motherfuckers came in the strip club and just started making it rain. Like, it legit was a scene out of a movie. So in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to get this money. Da, da, da. Every single dollar I earned that night, and I think I only earned like maybe like somewhere between $100 and $200, right? But considering it was a Wednesday night, and like, when I got on the stage, they literally came in and it was just like money falling from the sky. It all happened in 10 minutes. So to get like $100 to $200 in 10 minutes, oh, I was like, oh, I was just, me, I'd be delusional. So I was like, oh yeah. And I literally that next day went to the store, like bought shoes, bought outfits, like balled out. And it was just, yeah, it was a rude awakening. Um, so to have this like portrayed in the media of like, oh yeah, they're just gonna come and spend money, and then it not be that was a lot for me. And on top of that, the first time I was in a strip club, like, I was there as a wingman. I didn't need to be in a strip club. I didn't really care to be in a strip club. If I'm being honest, I thought it was cooler to just be like, oh, I'm a scripper, and just kind of have that title. But not necessarily like, I didn't have to be. I was in school to become a teacher. So I was like, this isn't really supposed to be me anyway. But versus the second time when I went in the strip club, by this point, like, I had started pole dancing, I had started my dom work. So I've been in a strip club before. So I was like, oh, okay, like, I can approach this in a completely different way. So I thought that since I had that knowledge, but it was still awkward as shit. It still just wasn't like, I don't want to be here. So I went for 2 nights and I was like, yeah, we got to find a different path in life. So shout out if you are a stripper, if you are interested in being a stripper, shout out to you. Good luck to you. It's not for everybody, but if you like, I know some people who are very successful in that realm of spicy work, and I just, kudos to y'all, not me. So anywho, why I bring that up is because, like, I kind of felt that sense in the Footnight of like, okay, it's a bunch of people just kind of like sitting around waiting for some shit to go down, right? And what makes it different though for the foot party is, one, so as a dom, I've learned, one, that the subs, or in the foot night party, you have foot fetishists, and then you have people who are submissive. Not everybody who is a foot fetishist is somebody who's submissive. So that's one thing. You got to kind of separate the like dom persona from interacting with the people there. So not everybody's there like submissive. But I found it is a lot, like, a lot of people are nervous, especially there were a lot of boys there that were like, this is my first time, like, and it's so funny because foot boys be so nervous, and I'm like, y'all are one of the more accepted, especially now, like, everybody talking about feet pics this, feet pics that, like, everybody is talking about, like, foot fetish is one of the more accepted ones, right? So I think it's really interesting that so many of them be nervous of like, oh, I'm scared to tell my partner, or this, that, and third. And I'm like, if you don't shut up and stick this motherfucking foot down your mouth, which stories anyway. So yeah, it's a lot more casual, right? So you're having conversations and really just getting to know the person, like, when did you start the foot fetish, or tell me more about yourself. So let me get more into it. So the first night, I was kind of shy, just kind of observant, not really like wanting to go up to people because it was still awkward. Like I had this one dude who just really was like weird as shit. And so I had saw BB was talking to him and I saw other people. So then BB came to me and was like, "Oh yeah, like he said he wanted to session with you next." And then when I got over there, he was acting really fucking weird. But it turns out he was just like a drunk weirdo. So that was I look so good. Y'all, my hair, for those of you who are listening, my hair is so fucking long, bro. And as I'm combing out my locks, it's so bitter fucking sweet. It's so bittersweet because of course now my hair wants to be like super fucking long and just like glowing and all this stuff. And I'm like, which if you haven't watched my lock video, go check that out. I have, so at the time of this recording, we are at March, what's today? March 23rd, I think. And I have combed out 22 locks. So I have 96 more to go. And I'm fighting. I'm fighting for my life. I'm fighting for my life. But it's what I want to do. I definitely will be relocking them. So I am kind of like, it's very bittersweet, but I am excited to go through this process again. Like as I go through all these pictures from when I first started, like my starter locks and like when they were in the budding phase and all of that. So I am excited to see that process. But like I really can't be like long hair don't care no more because my hair is shrinking. But anyway, back to the point. So yeah, he was weird. Then there was another boy that I met on Chirp, which is like a female-led relationship dating app. I fucking hate that app. It's just the we're not this isn't about that. So we're not gonna go on that. But this dude who ended up being my first session, he came in and I was like, "Oh, I recognize you." Like we matched on Chirp. And so he was like, "Oh, I don't really be on there." I was like, "Yeah, I could tell because you never messaged me back, ho." But he was super sweet. Like we ended up actually going to the same college. I'm older than him, so we weren't there at the same time. So we were just talking about like, he majored in education as well. So we were talking about that and like he just graduated. He's like not a baby, but a baby. And I was like, wow, I remember when I had just graduated and yeah. So we were talking about that and then he's like, yeah, so like do you want a session? And he definitely he is a boy that's identifies as submissive, so it was very cute to see how nervous he was, on top of just like being nervous but then being nervous in front of someone who's dominant. It was like, so he goes to the bathroom and I like set up the little area and he comes over and he's like grabbing my foot and then he was like, take off my shoes. So he takes off my shoes and I'm like, kiss my foot. So he kisses my foot and I'm like, what do you say? And he's like, thank you, Temptress Mango. And I was like, good boy. And you could see like a sense of relief over him. So then it was just like he got lost in it. When I tell you this boy was making out with my foot, I mean, he was making out with my foot. And I was like, you know what? I'm here for this. I'm so here for this. And he was doing this like kiss one foot, massage the other foot combo. It was lovely. Then there was another guy. I only had two sessions that night, but then this other guy, it was his birthday, and it was really cute because he was having his best life. He was like making his rounds to everybody. And he liked to be trampled. So he took a picture of me like standing on him, but then he wanted to massage my feet. So he's like massaging my feet, and it was funny because I was asking him, like, what got you into this? And so he went on the whole spiel about, like, it starts from childhood because then he started talking about the brain. And he was like, he caught himself. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to nerd out and be like weird. And I was like, no, I'm here for it. Like, tell me everything. So he got really excited. He put my foot down. He's like, fuck your foot. And he's like showing me these like brain diagrams of where, like, in your brain, it's like the foot, the genitals, and something else are all like that part of our brain are all near each other. So that's why foot fetish is most common. And that's why it starts in like childhood most times because like something usually happens and whatever. So anywho, so then he's like trying to like stretch my legs too. It was really fun and really cute. So that was my first foot night. So then the second one, we went to Akron, Ohio, and that was a lot of fun. It was a bigger strip club. It was a bigger venue. I did get to trample somebody. Y'all, I was stepping on this man's face in heels. I was so nervous. And it's just so funny because, especially the trample boys, like, because trampling You definitely need some kind of balance. And that's why I would definitely recommend like holding on to something while you're trampling somebody, not just like if it's your first time, do it with no shoes. I prefer no shoes because of that balance part, and it really does make me nervous to step on people with heels on. But this this guy, he's like, we call him trample bitch, and he was just so excited. He's like, you can step on my face, you can step harder, you can jump. And he's like, he's directing me on how to do it. Then he like wanted me to step on his hand with my heel to like leave an imprint of my heel on his hand. And by the end of the night, he's like trying to get as many people as he can to step on him. So he's like, oh, whoever's left, come on. So like me and this girl were like just, tag teaming, jumping on his face and his head. And it was that's a crazy sentence. But that was a good time. Then there was this other dude who I don't think it was his first time, but it was another girl's first time. So we're like talking to each other, and then he comes up and he had like his beard was braided. So I always be trying to find like some random thing to like pique a conversation. So I was like, okay, I see you like rat tail beard or whatever. So that made him sit down. We're all talking or whatever. And then he's like, yeah, so are both of y'all doing sessions? And we're like, yeah, duh. Like, why do you think we're here? And he's like, oh, like who wants to go first? And we're both like, we're here all night. It doesn't matter. So he's like, oh, would you like to like do a double? So we're like, shit, yeah. So we go over, and he's like, he's laying on the ground. And it's so funny because they get so lost in it. Like that scene, being in a scene is so much fun when you can, especially when you could tell. Like, I think from a dominant perspective, seeing a person drop into subspace or bottom space, whatever you want to call it, is so awesome and rewarding. Like it's just like, okay, we're here, we're in it. And then like that, you get satisfaction, or at least I get satisfaction from that, and just kind of being like, I really have power over you right now, like you're my little bitch. And some people will be so upset by that, but anywho, so yeah, he's just like he has 2 feet in his face. He's just like, just rubbing his face in our feet. And the next thing you know, this man got my entire foot in his mouth. I said, I know that's right. So then he like did it to her. So then like, because the sessions are only 10 minutes at a time, so that my timer goes off, and then I'm like, yeah, so that's time. He's like, y'all want to go again? And we're like, yes. We go again. And at this point I need to go to the bathroom, so I excuse myself, and he ended up keeping her occupied all night. Like, when I came out the bathroom, I saw that they had went back in a session, and then like eventually later in the night I had like ran and did something with somebody else. And then I see her in a different location, but I could tell she was in a session because the way she was looking down. And it wasn't until the end of the night that like he popped back up. And I was like, bro, I thought you left hours ago. He's like, yeah, nah, I was just, yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, welcome back to reality. Um, so yeah, then I had met like a new person there too, and it was fun to have conversation with him and just kind of like, engage in that. And then there was Footnight Lebanon, which there were a bunch of new girls there because this was the first time that they ever had the Lebanon one. And this is my third one at this point, and I'm just having a time. Like I had so much fun. So the host, Jax Dynamite, he's like, oh, if anybody has any questions, like feel free to ask Bad Bitch or Mango and blah 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 blah. And so I was like, oh, wait a minute, like everybody's new here? And they're like, yeah. I was like, oh my god, I was new last week. Like legitimately, it had only been a week, but I just felt so excited, so pumped. And yeah, so I'm like that. I think of the Uzi thing where he's like, "It's my third day out here." I don't know, but it legitimately was my third day out there. So then I met a new guy there, and that was a lot of fun. Ended up having me wrapped up all night. But yeah, so that is Footnight recap. I have some more lineups. I had a lot of fun. It's definitely a great networking event. And yeah. Okay. So now that Footnight's out the way, what I really, y'all, like I said, I have so many pages of notes because so much has been going on. But really, one of the main things I wanted to touch on in this episode is gratitude, the power of gratitude, right? So the other day, I was scrolling on Instagram, and it's so funny because y'all know I got like 50, 11,000 Instagrams. If you know, you know. And so the algorithm on so many of them are just like really interesting. But my Finsta, my like very personal one that like very, very close friends are on, um, every time I go on there, my feed is just all about like Bible verses and Christ and all that stuff, right? But this one, there's this girl, like the thing what caught my eye, it was like gratitude, like being grateful for the things that didn't happen as well. You know, we think about, you know, being grateful for the things you have, but we don't talk enough about being grateful for the things that didn't happen. Right. So I'm like, okay, I hear you, especially because I think a couple of days before that, I was doing something and that came up too. It was like talking about like magic and stuff. And it was saying, you know, like when you do a working and like just leading expressing gratitude for the working or for the working not working, right? And so anyway, back to this particular post, she's like, you know, because she was talking about it and I'm like, okay, girl, I hear you. And then she was like, you know, because honestly, I have to thank God every day that I wasn't born during the 70s and 80s because I would have been on crack. Ooh, sun check. Hold on. Look at it. Look at that. Ooh. Ooh. um, but yeah, she's like, because I would have been cracked out. That would have been my life every day. Wake up, crack, wake up, crack. And I'm like, you know what? As a certified crack baby, you right. I haven't made a crack baby joke in so long. But I'm like, you know, that is something beautiful, right? That like she wasn't born during crack. And to have that self-awareness that like, yeah, if I was born during the peak of crack, your bitch would have been cracked out, right? But in a more serious term, I think of something that I am moving through now. And so last year in episode 59, I talked about it was a rough year, like all this stuff was happening, blah, 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 blah. Last year, when I was like at the, I don't even know, like it definitely was a very, the clouds look so pretty right now. It was a very thick moment of just like grief, and a lot of things were happening, and I was terrified. I didn't know how anything was going to work out. I got notice of a blessing that I had inherited something, right? So I was like, oh my God, like I never would have expected this to happen, blah, 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 blah. Like super, super excited. Like, yes, my answers have been, my prayers have been answered. Like I never would have expected that this was how it's going to come out, right? So I got really attached to that. And I was super, super excited about it. And then there was a part where, because a lot of what I have been processing and going through is like this idea of surrendering. And I think this is I've talked about this podcast and this person, Karen Chong, Mastering Your World Through Frequencies. That was something I came across and I listened to that here and there, has been very helpful. And one episode that I was listening to her was talking about this idea of surrender. And I think in our culture, we are so programmed to like fight and be able to try to control things and blah blah blah. So the idea of surrender, we automatically look at it as defeat. It's like we're not strong enough, we're not capable enough, that we are handing over success or control to somebody else, right? But when you reframe surrender as following, and where did I, because I wrote it on surrender as following, um, that takes away so much of that negative meaning, and it makes a lot more sense. So if I'm surrendering to something, I'm no longer trying to control the outcome. I'm just following whatever is supposed to happen. Or like it allows me to be more present and receive more clarity about what my next steps forward are, instead of like, no, it has to be this way, it has to be this way, I have to do this, I have to do that, right? And so that requires obedience and also like this sense of structure. And so by surrendering, I'm able to approach something with more clarity to build that structure, if that makes sense, right? So this particular thing, it came to my attention and I was like, oh, this is the answer, da da da. So I kept really trying to like push, okay, I need to do this to speed this up, or I need to do that. And I'm thinking like it was going to be a full, like maybe as soon as I got the call, I thought by the next week everything was going to play out. And so here we are months later, because I think I got the call in like July and now we're in March. So it's almost been a year and we are still just like, so there was a lot of pressure internally because of the situation that I was in, and I really thought like, oh, this is the blessing and I need to, do whatever to make it speed up. And then there were external pressures too, of like, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that, right? So there was a lot of pressure that was making me kind of like, I need to email this person, I need to do this, I need to do that, and then getting so frustrated when I wouldn't get the response that I wanted. And so I had to just like, a certain part of me, a lot of times I'll check in now that I have this better understanding of like resistance and surrendering. And it's like, how much of me is trying to control this outcome? And sometimes I have the tendency to overthink. So then I'm just like, sometimes I get like, analysis paralysis, where I start overthinking like, oh my God, is this me trying to control? Is this? So I'm still learning that balance. But in that particular situation, because in my head, I was like, all right, bet, like I'm gonna inherit this thing and then I'll be able to do this with that and get this big payout. And I really, 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 and I still do. I really, really, really wanted to move to North Carolina, and I had been talking about moving to North Carolina last year, and that was like in my head. I was like, oh, perfect. This is how I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna be able to do this, that, and the third, right? And you couldn't tell me otherwise. But I kept getting met with this resistance, right? And so I finally just kind of left it alone. But I was so frustrated and so upset, especially because I've been telling y'all, like, part of the reason why I didn't come back when I wanted to is because in my head, I had been talking this big shit, like, oh, I need to be on my shit with this, and I need to do that, and da 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 da. So I thought by the time I came back, like, big shit was going to be popping, and it just wasn't. And I was like, I want stability again, and I want this, and blah, blah, blah. So in my head, I could only see this was the path forward. And I was trying to find every which way to get down to North Carolina. But going back to being grateful for the things that didn't happen. In this particular situation, two things. So, one, it was a blessing that I didn't get down to North Carolina, because with recent sex work laws, I know North Carolina is affected, Alabama is affected, and I'm blanking on like which bill and which acts are in place. But basically, there's like, this attack, there's always an attack on the sex work industry, and it's under the guise of like trying to protect children and things like that. But y'all don't want to remove pedophiles from office and everything else. But that's not, I'm not going to be on that soapbox right now. But age verification laws and things of that nature. So a lot of states are cracking down. And I know that like Alabama, there's like certain states like that sites just don't want to work with, because the laws are like really vague, or very just like there's so much workaround that it's like, is my mic still on? Okay. That states just don't even want to be bothered. So with North Carolina specifically, it's like some sites, if you even try to log on while you're like, you don't have to be a resident of the state, but if you even try to log on while you're there, they like lock your account and you have to do some kind of verification or whatever else. But I believe with North Carolina, it was like you can no longer make or post content, but basically you can't do collaborations. So what that would have looked like for me, I have collaborations with a couple different people. That means that with a North Carolina ID, I would have had to delete all of my content that features other people. They, even if they're not in North Carolina, they also would have had to delete their content that features me. And moving forward, I could only post stuff that has me in it. And I'm just like, wow, like I'm grateful that I didn't get to North Carolina because that would have, and it's not like I do a lot of solo content, but that's still like, I have shit with other people that sells. So not only does that hinder me, but then that hinders somebody else's as well. So that's one thing to be grateful for, right? And then, and that's also taking like a no isn't necessarily a no. It's a not yet because I still see myself in North Carolina. And I even think about like the way I see myself in North Carolina, I want a house. But I was sitting here like trying to be in an apartment and do this and do that. And I'm like, okay, well, it's just not yet. Like, and this isn't, I'm sitting here rushing because I'm thinking like this is what has to be done, that I'm forgetting what my initial desire even was, right? So then in this instance too, another thing is like, I've talked about, and I wanted to get to it, but I might just do a completely different episode about it. But it's like relationships with money and unpacking those ideas that I've grown up with, and like really getting into the subconscious mind and the beliefs around money. Somebody that I want to a creator that I want to shout out is Jamie C. I love her. I love her podcast. I'm actually, at the time of this recording, I'm participating in like, she had this 4-day challenge about like receivership and what that means and what that does, like, because basically the subconscious is the body. So really kind of tapping in of like, how do you feel when you receive things? What story do you tell yourself? Like, and it doesn't always have to be money. Like, even if it's like receiving a compliment, when somebody tells you, oh, I like your hair, or I like your shirt, da, da, da. When somebody tells you they like your shirt, is your response just thank you? Do you feel obligated to then compliment them back? Do you feel obligated to be like, oh, thanks, I got it from Ross for $7? Or, like, what is your response to just receiving a compliment? So then what is your response to receiving money? And it was like something, I think our bodies function is to keep us safe. Our nervous system, our subconscious mind is to keep us safe, keep us in the familiar. Even if we're consciously saying that we want this thing, our body is not familiar with that. And so it's always going to bring us back to our baseline. So for instance, like something that I kind of had to realize is like, when I receive a large amount of money, well, I think even like when I talked about in episode 59, the night flirt call, like that was $1,200 in less than 30 minutes. And granted, I didn't get the full thing, but neither here nor there. The point is, I had a 4-digit day in less than 30 minutes, which has never really happened. I mean, I've received like refund checks and stuff or whatever, but to get that amount of money with so little work, and it was like, I have felt a pressure since then to replicate that. And even then it was like when I got that, I'm sitting here, I'm frustrated because it was taking forever for the payout, and I'm like, I have bills to pay. So this overwhelming need of already assigning the money to go to these things, so as soon as that money came in and hit my account, it was already out. And that was part subconsciously my body's way of like returning to this like need to kind of struggle and fight for the money or whatever else. But again, I'll do another episode on that. So when I think about, though, as frustrating as it has been of like, okay, this inheritance, when is it going to come? When am I going to get it? I also think about, had I got it when I won it, I would have immediately moved to North Carolina. So that already would have fucked me up in terms of just content and building my brand that way. Um, and then I see how I had assigned that money to so many things. Some of them were needed and some of them weren't necessarily needed. And I could see how me moving so fast, like of trying to, and consciously, it's a helicopter. I don't know if y'all can hear that because sometimes this mic is funny about what it picks up, but that's why I paused. If you didn't hear, it's a helicopter. But anyway, so I consciously, it's like, okay, well, these bills need to be paid and I need to do this and I need to, like, I can pay this off so then I don't have to worry about that bill and blah blah blah. And like this pressure to do it the right way, to handle the money the right way. And I think about how I easily can see how I would have fell down the same trap that I was in, right? And learning to hold that more. So yeah, just being grateful that as much as I did want it and I still do, like I'm kind of just like, all right, like when's it coming? Like, but understanding that it'll come when it's time and it when I am in a space where I can actually receive that and hold it, right? Um so yeah, there's a lot that I wanted to talk about. Let me pick something else. Oh, so I went back and I was watching some episodes. So one episode, episode 40, I'm complex as fuck. It's funny because in that episode, I was going on somewhat of a rant and I was talking about my journey through sex work and a couple other things, and really, trusting the process of how things play out. I mean, even going back to the gratitude thing, it's like, trusting that this is unfolding in a way, because now I have more revelations and more understanding of myself, of my relationship and my patterns to money and just like abundance or just in general how I handle things, that I didn't have those insights when I first got that notification of the blessing. And being grateful that I now have a better understanding to move forward when it finally does land. Um it was funny because in that video though, somebody commented, and I think in episode 41 I ended up like screenshotting it and putting it in the video, but somebody commented and was like, you need Jesus. And I'm here to say 2 years later your girl found him. Like, and I think, I have, for those of you who are listening, I have my handsy zanzy Bible with me, right? Because there were some verses that I wanted to talk about. And I think it's, part of me is like, oh, this isn't like, I don't want this to become or seem like this is like some holier than thou Christian podcast, right? Because it's not. And I don't know if I mentioned in one of the videos, but I would say I'm still very much agnostic. And I could adopt the term like free flowing spiritualist, eclectic spiritualism, because I've always been connected to other things outside of Christianity. And so my cousin, I was talking to her and she said she heard the term community Christian. And I actually love that, right? And I've talked about how my relationship with Christianity, it started out as more of, I had this aversion, but then understanding um, how Christianity and has played a major role um in the Black culture, understanding that that is what my ancestors that I've known, like lots of family members who were, when they were here, they were involved in the church and how that was a big part for them. But then also thinking about the ancestors that I never met that were brought over on the slave trade, and like hoodoo, and how hoodoo and Christianity do go hand in hand. So me pursuing Bible verses, or me developing a connection with the Bible, has been more than anything. It started out as ancestor veneration, understanding that this is how, my ancestors, this is what they knew. So this is how they're going to communicate with me, right? And then I bought my first Bible last year and I didn't really touch it. And then by the time I did start going to church, I had a Bible that I could use, right? And so the when I went to church, I had like attended online because the person that I've been going with, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to church." And I was like, "Well, if you need a ride, like, I'm here. Feel free to out like I'd love to go with you." So she sent me the sermon from that day. And I was like, "Oh shit." Like, immediately started speaking to me. And the Bible verse that has been just like kind of my leading, I got like stick it, I be in this thing. But the Bible verse is Joshua chapter 1 verse 18, and it reads, and I have the King James version. So sometimes get if you want to get into Bible work, get a Bible that makes sense. I don't know why I decided to get the King James version, because it really don't be making sense sometimes. But like, I actually do kind of like to challenge my mind. I also have an app on my phone where I can like add. So let me get to this one thing at a time. So this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. So basically, what it is saying is that the Bible is a book that you should be reading day and night for guidance, because everything that you need to be successful is in here. And it's so true, right? Or I don't know. Yes, it's true for me. And it is true for other people. So the more that I get into this, I'm like, wow. Because even in the last episode, I was talking about the book of Matthew. Like, I had opened that sucker up, and the verse I read, I was like, oh my God, everything's burning to hell. And then when I read more of it, I was like, okay, it's talking about this idea of faith and holding on, and like, your word is your command, and that it is inevitable, right? And there's so many other verses that had happened. Do I want to read any of the notes that I have on here? No, I won't. But this was the book. This was the verse that when I first started going back to church, and we've been studying it for a while now. Like, this is kind of like the I can't remember what I was trying to say. Lost my train of thought in the middle of my sentence. But basically, this is the Bible verse that I have just been coming back to. And something that when you see a lot of conversation and discourse about Christianity and deconstructing it, and even my pastor had kind of said something about that, right? Is that like, a lot of people will go to church and they just go that day, and they receive whatever sermon, they're holier than thou for however long, and then they go back to normal life, cutting up and doing whatever, right? And they just take the pastor's word for whatever it is. And then we've also seen historically how people will manipulate things from the Bible for their benefit, right? And so that's why Christianity has such a bad rap among whatever else. And so really driving home this, like, you need to be in the book for yourself, right? um and getting whatever messages you need at the time. So like, sometimes I be like, okay, I'm gonna wake up and I read my Bible, and sometimes the ADHD be in, and I be like, I can't do this. And so I have a Bible app, and I've noticed, like, sometimes now, I was like, there was this one day I had this news that I was just like really, really frustrated with. And ironically, the verse that popped up on my phone that day was, it was a Psalms, and it was talking about the need to be still and not make any rash decisions. And I was just like, oh, like, I was so frustrated with that and that relevance. Um, but there's been so many things that have, come back to a verse in the Bible. Um, and so I just think it's funny that this person was like, you need to find Jesus. And now I'll be like, yes, Jesus. What else did I want to talk about? There's so many things. Y'all, I need y'all. Okay. I don't know who need to hear this, but y'all need to stop ordering shit from Temu. I said what I said, okay? Because there's no reason why I was scrolling down my timeline, and Temu is now selling meat. You could order beef, like steaks, from Temu. You could order chicken tenders from Temu. That's just crazy. And as much as I preach no judgment, I'm judging. You are being judged. The Virgo in me is judging the fuck out of you, because if you're ordering food from Temu, baby, please stop. Please stop. Please. I just needed to point that out. Um, Let me see. Y'all, oh my God, last year, y'all know. So if y'all been here for a while, y'all know. Y'all know. I love me some motherfucking Jessie Reyes. I saw her 3 times last year. I saw her 2 nights in a row in Maryland, and then I saw her again in North Carolina. Oh, actually, I saw her 4 times, because then she released a book of poems. I went to the book reading, and y'all, okay. Y'all know I love me some Squirtle. I think y'all know. I don't know if I've talked about Squirtle before, but Squirtle is my favorite Pokemon. And she said that was her favorite Pokemon too. And I'm just like, we were made for each other. So if anybody listens to this, or if Jessie Reyes, you finally found me, girl, you know I love you, bitch. I ain't never gonna stop loving you, bitch. Okay. So if anybody who's listening to this knows Jessie Reyes, like, y'all, I know it's inevitable. I know it's inevitable. Like, I have met, let's see, I met her guitarist, or is it bassist? Heather. I met Heather. She's in her band. I met her mama. I met Jessie Reyes' mother. Like, so obviously the next step is to meet Jessie Reyes. Okay. So I love you, bitch. Okay. We both love Squirtle. I just had to put that out there because y'all know I love me some Jessie Reyes. Oh my God, there's so much that I can talk about. Like, all right. What else? So in Minnesota 11, I do want to touch on that. In Minnesota 11, so you're thinking about sex work, which I am going to, now that I've been, because I released that episode when I had like first started this journey. So there's, so now that I'll legit be like I'll be 3 in this industry in a couple of weeks. And that's just so beautiful to think, and to see. But I want to do an updated version of just like, okay, so you're thinking about going to sex work, specifically content creation, but also considering like just in general. So if you have anything that you would like, any questions or anything that you would like me to talk about, please put it in the comments. Email me to scrippersonepole@gmail.com. DM me on Instagram to scrippersonepole. That's 2SKRIPAS. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. I taught art, not spelling. 2SKRI. Whoa. 2SKRIPPAS1POLE. Sun check. Okay. But yeah, so I want to do an updated version of just like some things that I would avoid or do or whatever else. But when I was rewatching that episode, somebody asked me 2 questions. One question was, does this make it easier or harder dealing with men? And I would say easier, in the sense that I have a better understanding of self. I have better respect for myself. So I know what I will and will not tolerate. So I have better boundaries and values and expectations for myself. And that determines how and if I interact with other people. And there's a lot of men that I have met in the industry that have just been shitty, but there's some ones that actually like have some sense, right? So I think more than anything, it has strengthened my sense of self and how I want to interact with people, because I think even like, at one point it's like I had to, and there's a quote I'll read. There's lots of quotes that I found. But there was this tweet that I saw, and they were like, not gonna lie, in order to become a better person, you must first realize how horrible you really are. Not in a dramatic sense, but in all the quiet ways you sabotage yourself, repeat unhealthy patterns, hurt people who care about you, or tolerate what wounds you. You cannot grow if you keep pretending you're innocent in the story you created. And so I wasn't originally planning on connecting those dots, but why I bring this up now is because there was a point in time where, as I'm building my brand and how I am expecting my clients who are seeking my services to interact with me, I have a certain expectation. You know, if you're trying to book me, I took my time making my website and building it in a structured way so that this is the information you need. You take, once you read that, you take that information to fill this out, which will like basically speed you up into doing that, right? And just all these expectations of how I expect you to approach me and interact with me, right? And to bring this quote in, it's like, so I have all these expectations of clients, but in my personal dating life, I'm not necessarily making the person I'm dating follow these. And it's like, how do I say this? I'm expecting my clients to treat me as a princess or whatever else, but then in my relationships, I am kind of still just being a little bit more soft spoken and not necessarily asserting, or like kind of making excuses like, oh no, you don't have to do that. I'll still do it myself. But then if it was somebody else, it's like, bitch, why are you even asking me to do that shit? So of course people are not treating me the way that I want to be treated because I'm not enforcing that boundary or that expectation. I hope that that makes sense, because again, that wasn't the original way I planned to bring up that quote. But that just kind of came to me. And so I'm kind of processing that in real time. But anyway, how I initially wanted to bring that quote up and how I was talking about like last time, you know, hard pills to swallow, reality is a mirror, and really understanding the role that we play in things. Like, we want so bad to place the blame, consciously or unconsciously. We want to place the blame on other people and other things, and not feel like we are part of the problem. I think about recently, I had a falling out with someone. And in my head, I'm just like, why can't you just see that I love you and I want the best for you, right? But that's coming from a place that's self-serving. And I have no doubt in my mind that this person wants better for themselves. But in my head, I'm saying these things to them in hopes to like wake them up to the truth and see how they have control. And in their head, they really don't. They don't, they genuinely believe that they are correct in what they're doing, and they don't see another option, and that is coming from a fear that they have. And so I had to sit back and I was like, I don't understand why, like, they just don't see that they're better than this, and that they have so much, and why don't they just want to be happy? Why can't they just be happy? Because part of it is like, I want you to be happy so that we can be happy together, right? But then it hit me that I am too much of a mirror for them. That while I have intent versus impact, while I have really, really good intentions for them to be a better version of themselves. And I've told them before that even if we don't figure out whatever's happening between us, I still want happiness for you. I want happiness for everybody. I want everybody to be happy. And even if that's not with us in each other's lives, that's still something that I think you deserve, right? And I'm just like, I don't understand why you can't see that. And me bringing it up to them is in hopes, you know, I'm coming from a place of all these revelations and this enlightenment or whatever. And it's really with the best intent. But for them, they're living in a different version of their reality. So me constantly bringing this up is bringing attention to their perceived flaws, their perceived deficits, their perceived, like, the thing that they're not happy with. Like, they know that they're angry, and it's like, well, you know, I'm like, well, you're not really angry. Like, anger is a secondary emotion, and you're really just scared and blah 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 blah. And it's like, I'm saying this with so much love behind it, but they are not understanding that that is that, right? I'm too much of a mirror, and they are not in a space where they can perceive what I am saying, where they can receive what I am saying with the intent that I am speaking it, right? And so when I had that realization, I was like, damn, oh, my phone, oh, the wind is blowing. Oh, hold on now. Don't knock the tripod over. Um, yeah. So then something else, and then it was like, yeah, so you have to kind of realize the part that you play in things. That's a, I don't know if that's a wasp or a bee. Something else was like real growth begins the moment you stop pretending you're always the good guy in your own story. Self-awareness is uncomfortable, but it is the doorway to becoming better. Brutal self honesty is usually the real entry ticket to change. Most quote unquote good person upgrades stall because people stay married to a sanitized version of themselves. So even when I was talking about last episode, where I was like, this idea that, like, what do you mean? Like, I want, what do you mean that I put myself in debt? Why would I want to do that? What do you mean that I want it to be heartbreaking, blah blah blah, heartbroken, blah blah blah. And noticing, forgiving yourself, coming from a place, in episode 40 I read from the 7 spiritual laws of success, and it was talking about practicing non-judgment, and now having a better understanding of that, of obviously not judging yourself, not judging others, but just non-judgment of situations, because everything is there for us to notice. And so where exactly was I going with that? Shoot, lost my train of thought. So many notes. Um, Everything is there for us to notice. Most good person. Married to a sanitized version of ourselves. Also thinking of gratitude. So, in the regards of money, right? Something that I had did, because I told you I was down in master classes like nobody's business last year, and I'm doing that this year. But somebody brought up the point of being grateful for debt, which sounds crazy, right? Again, why would I want to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt? Why would I want to blah 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 blah, whatever story you're telling yourself? But reframing that and understanding that, one, if I wasn't like forgiving myself, that I was doing the best I could at the time, accumulating this debt because, I figured that this is the only way it was going to get done, or this was something that I really wanted, whatever. Um, and knowing that at the time when I agreed to this, I thought that was what was best for me. Then thinking about, well, if I didn't have this debt, I wouldn't feel as driven to become more financially literate and to go and figure out, like, to really unpack this relationship with money, right? Because if I wasn't in debt, I wouldn't be trying to figure out ways to, like, get rid of the debt, right? So being grateful for that, even though it seems like this huge, like, horrible thing. Um, and then recognizing, because then it also allows me to really unpack my relationship with money or whatever else. So when I think about, honestly, I've had an avoidant relationship with money. I don't want to look, because it's like, okay, well, I know that these bills have to be paid, but there's not enough money in the bank account to pay them or whatever else, right? And so as I continue to repair this relationship with money, and I do weekly money dates of, like, sitting down and looking at the money, and at first it was something that was like very, like, oh my god, like, it was very gut wrenching, but now I have a better understanding of, like, quote unquote leaking, where my money's leaking, where I'm buying things, and not judging that, just noticing, okay, well, I had money come in and then I felt the need to go buy this and buy that when I really didn't need it. I could have been more patient about getting something. Like, I think something as simple as, like, with me combing out my locks, I've been saying in Harrisburg with BB, and I had all of my lock comb out stuff there. Then I came home one weekend and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do like some lock comb out, but I don't have all of my stuff. So then I ran to the store to go buy some extra combs and buy some extra whatever. And then I didn't even end up having enough time to comb out my locks. So I just spent, and granted, it was only like $5 or $6, but it was like I felt this need to go to the store and go buy that stuff when I really didn't need it in that moment. So recognizing how that was a pattern of overspending or this pressure to do something, right? And not judging that, noticing that. And how do we move forward from there? Exercising more patience within myself, really having a conversation. Is it something that I really need right now? What else can I do with this like energy that I feel needs to get to be like released or whatever? Um, and so also sitting down every week of noticing like, okay, where did I spend money that I didn't necessarily need to? Looking at my debt and seeing a large number. And again, like I could choose to go on this spiral. Oh my God, these bills are due. How am I going to pay this? And blah, blah, blah. This interest rate. I need to pay this off immediately because blah, 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 blah. And then I just go down, giving it momentum, getting more worked up. And then I eventually push myself into this place of like, I'm a failure. Why did I do this? I can't do anything right. Versus I can look at this number and express gratitude for it, because how amazing is that going to be when I can say I've paid off over $100,000 of debt, that my net worth is now positive, right? To be grateful of getting used to large numbers, because if I'm saying I'm going to be, which I am, it's only a matter of time, baby. But when I finally become that multimillionaire, when I like tap into that timeline, right? When it is in my 3D, I have now primed myself to be more familiar with larger numbers. Because yes, that can be perceived as a negative thing right now because it's so large, but on the flip side, that's going to be a normal Tuesday for me. That like, and my debt honestly isn't even that high. Like, it is over $100,000, but it's like I have the potential to make all of that in one day. And my job right now is sitting with that and getting comfortable with that and being in tune with my body. Because I even think like something now, I had this whole money situation happen in the beginning of this month that really was really frustrating. And again, being grateful of like, I could have seen if it had worked out in my favor in that moment, how that money would have just immediately gone. And then it finally got like somewhat resolved. I've had so many hurdles around this thing. But then when I finally got access to the money, I felt it in my body. I need to spend this. I need to pay that. I felt it. And I've been sitting with that for a couple days. Do certain bills still need to be paid? Yes. But understanding the frequency from which I am doing it. And so Beyond Taylor, I've talked about her a lot. I attended this masterclass she had the other day about stabilizing the identity, and like how I really like the analogy she gave of like when we're looking at life, we identify too much with the character. Like if we use the analogy of like a movie, we identify a little bit too much with the character of the movie. And I would say that, it is relevant to be in tune with that character, but where we really should be is the camera that is noticing how things play out and being more aware of that, because that almost sense of separation allows us to notice things and notice how we're moving. So, in this sense of money, let's say I have a $2,000 day. That money comes in, I could immediately feel the sense like, okay, now I need to go to the store and buy this, or let me hurry up and pay off this bill. I think even when I got my tax return, like I had got it a couple days earlier and I immediately was like, okay, let me pay this, let me pay this, let me pay this, let me pay this. And then it got down, like I think in the matter, and this was just my state refund, like not even the federal yet. And so in a matter of 20 minutes, I spent damn near $1,000. Like, and it was just like, and in my head, and it's not like I spent it on anything that wasn't necessary, but it was this overwhelming sense of like, okay, I need to make sure that I handle this money correctly. I need to make sure that this is paid off. This needs to get taken care of so then I can move on to the next thing. And not even just sitting with holding that money, because honestly, where I was at in that moment, those bills were due, but they could have waited a couple more days. I didn't have to pay them in that exact moment. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I just spent $1,000 in less than 20 minutes and I only have this much left. I need to sit, I can't, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to act like it's there, because what if it doesn't come back, right? And having that like immediate response to overspend and like get it out of my way, and then becoming avoidant because what if it doesn't come back? What if it. And so then thinking about, there's another creator that I really like. Her name is Karina Alexander. And she was talking about, the same idea of that perspective of things, the frequency in which you're doing things, like what stories, like, so if I think the other day I like went to go get some food, and I was kind of having like, I noticed this internal dialogue of like, you didn't need to buy this food. You didn't need to do that. You could have like went to the grocery store and spent the same amount and got more and blah blah blah. And it's like, I'm starting to go on this spiral of like guilt and shame of like, I could have spent my money in a better way, right? But then I also remember that there is a version of myself that has all the money in the world. And this is nothing, this is a normal Tuesday. I just wanted to treat myself to this thing. And also kind of finding this balance, because again, we have to be realistic. And it's like, okay, you can't keep telling yourself every time that you spend this money, like, oh, there's a version of myself that blah 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 and da da da. But I also can't sit here and guilt trip myself every single time. Um, Going back to like noticing, and so the same action can look different, but really being in tune with your body. So like when I received that money, feeling like, okay, what do I feel like I need to do in this moment? Do I have this urge to automatically pay this bill, to go to the store and buy something that I may or may not actually need, or feel the need to like, when I think about night flirt, it's like when that happened, I'm like, okay, I need to be on night flirt every day, and I need to do this and I need to do that to replicate that $1,000 day. Um, and kind of sitting with that. And it's not saying that like, okay, let's not pay this bill, but kind of sitting of like, okay, I'm paying this bill, but what sense of, is it from a sense of urgency that it needs to be done? Or is it from a sense of like, this is just the normal, this is what you do. You circulate money, and also changing words around money. So I like to say, instead of spending money, like I made a spreadsheet to keep track of how I spend money and reframing. So like my when I, instead of saying like expenses, I put circulation. How am I keeping this money in circulation? By paying this bill or going to the store to do this or whatever. Like that keeps the money in circulation. It keeps it in flow. Because something that Karina pointed out is like, and there was a couple different things that I had saw too about just like how we frame things, of like, you can't be calling in abundance, but then you are constantly hoarding money. You're scared to approach the money, you're scared to spend the money, you're scared to whatever, because I mean, and you don't know when it's going to come back in, but you can't just hoard it. You are keeping it in circulation, because even when you think about it, like if $1 million were to just pop up in your bank account right now, what do you want that $1 million for? You want that $1 million so you can spend it, so you can circulate it, right? So then to be like, every single dollar that you get, you're penny pinching, that is a direct repellent of what you're saying you want. So yeah, and kind of just really sitting with those things and noticing. Y'all know I love a good quote. I have so many quotes written down. And one of my favorite Yogi T quotes that I get often is that the only constant is change. And to go back to kind of those two quotes, or I guess three quotes that I read earlier, is like, we have to become like, first of all, if we're not changing, that means we're not growing. And I used to say, oh, I hate change. I don't like change, which of course, like, that's natural, because again, change is something unfamiliar. When we go back to the nervous system and the subconscious, we just want to be comfortable. We want to be familiar. We don't, the sense of change is like basically a death, right? And I think too, like, I remember in college, there was this point in time where I got very paranoid about death. And at this time, I think I had only really experienced like two deaths, which were my great grandmother and my grandfather. And but I was young, so it wasn't like I had time with them, but I wasn't like, I didn't have too much time with them. It was something that, and I kind of always still felt very connected to them, even though they weren't physically here. So it was, I just remember randomly though, like, no rhyme or reason, there was a point in my life where I got very, very scared and nervous about my mom dying. And I can't explain why, but it was just something like, we're chilling and then I'm having a panic attack because I'm nervous about death, right? And then I think about how, having almost faced death, that fear is gone. But what I was talking about last episode, and something that I continue, and even these quotes touch about, is like, you, when you notice something that isn't working for you, you have the choice to accept it, forgive yourself, and use it to inform how you move forward. Use it to inform how you change for the better. Or you can notice it and you can deflect and say, oh no, I'm not the person that has to change. I'm right, I'm wrong, da da da. Everybody's going to have a different version of the story. And in a grander scheme of things, you might be right in a certain perspective, but there's still something that you could have done differently. Um, and sometimes it's just so much easier to place that blame on somebody else because we don't want to accept how we fucked up in that moment. And even I feel like fucked up might still be kind of like a judgment based word or a really strong word. Um but yeah, I hope that that made sense. Let's see. What else could I talk about? Um so I want to talk a little bit about meditation. Some really great apps. Y'all know I love a good meditation. If you've been here, I talk about meditation and breathing a lot because one, so the definition of meditation is to cultivate a state of relaxed awareness where you observe. Oh, no. Y'all, my paper almost flew. This one is not playing with me. To cultivate a state of relaxed awareness where you observe thoughts without judgment rather than stopping them. Full presence, training the mind for mental clarity and emotional balance. So I think, so a couple things on that. When we think of meditation, we think of somebody sitting cross-legged with their fingers and, like, I don't know what, like, for those of you who are watching, I kind of have like the A-OK signs. Like, I don't know what the actual name for that. I think it's called a mudra, like the hand, the way you hold your hands. But I don't know the name for that. But you think of somebody like sitting there like or whatever, and like trying to completely silence their mind. And that's why for a lot of people that does not work. I've seen a couple things of like meditation it's like moving into stillness, becoming present in that moment, right? That can be done. Maybe you do better when you're walking. That is what helps, relax your mind. Maybe I know I've been told that when I'm like working on art, people like, I go into a trance. Even when I'm like dancing, sometimes I go into this trance. So for me in that moment, there's not really much going on in my mind. I'm just focused on like being present with the colors that I'm choosing, or like really feeling like the difference between how I paint on the canvas versus what it feels like to paint on wood or whatever. Just being very in that moment. So last year when I went on this whole like wellness whatever, one book that really started to help me was Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That was a really good book. It is very neuroscience based. So like I had started with the audiobook and I was like, oh, y'all got too many jargons, y'all are referencing things. So I was listening to it while also using like the Kindle version of it. That was very helpful. But how that book is structured, I think it's a great book. It talks about like what meditation is, what the quantum field is, and all that stuff, giving you the science behind it. And then it's like a 4-week process where he's walking you through a meditation process of like, first becoming aware of your body and being present in your body and kind of like relaxing your body. And then it's been a while since I did it because I was doing it. The way he does it is like you focus on it 1 week at a time and you're building upon skills. So I did that for a while and that was really fun. So that was a great book. Then this is for more of my witchy folks, but this book, Financial Sorcery by Jason Miller, and I wish I had like found it, but it was something that he said that really just kind of made sense for me. But he was talking about um meditation. And really what meditation is noticing your thoughts. Like you're trying and not doing anything about that. Like if I'm sitting here and I'm looking, I've gotten better to where I don't necessarily have a thought, but then, I'm like, oh, that's a really pretty tree. Oh, oh, that means pollen's gonna start like, and then I kind of just go down this like rabbit hole of like, it starts with, oh, I'm looking at the tree, that's so pretty. Oh, pollen's gonna get everywhere. Oh, maybe, oh, that means I'm gonna need to start washing my car. Oh, I'm washing my car. That means that I need to start, oh, I have to put money aside to go in the car wash. Oh, what do you mean I need to pay for the car wash? Because then I need to pay my phone bill and it just, and just kind of noticing how those jump. And then when you notice, oh, I'm going on a rampage. Let me come back to myself. Let me focus on my breath. What do I feel in my leg? And just being more present in that moment, because whenever we start, like, and y'all know I love The Power of Now, great book, which is initially, I found that, shout out to Jesse Reyes. But I read that book back after my car accidents because I was watching one of her interviews. She brought it up. So then I read that book and I was like, oh my God. So that's where I've really been like, the breath work. And even if it's like, you can do guided meditations, if you're not at a space where you can just sit down and like quiet yourself, watch something on YouTube, watch some app. I think I've talked about the app Balance before. That's a really great app. If you have an iPhone, Open is a really, really great app that I enjoy. The podcast, Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, that's, she has meditations at the end of everything. Like there's so many different ways that you can meditate. You just go out on a walk or whatever. Um, why did I, oh shoot. Why did I bring that up? That was a point I was gonna make. Damn. Completely lost my train of thought. Oh, so even if that seems a lot, the whole point is to be present in that moment. So if I have a minute to spare in my day, take some time. Let's take a breath, y'all. Breathe in, hold it at the top, and breathe out. And just do that. Notice what it feels like to breathe into your belly expanding and releasing that. versus trying to breathe into your back versus breathing out of your nose versus your mouth, or maybe breathing through your right nostril and then exhaling through your left nostril, and just being present with how that feels. And we don't think about that because we're always like, we're so caught up in our thoughts and we believe that we are our thoughts, right? And Beyond Taylor made a great point of like, we aren't our thoughts. We associate our thoughts with ourselves because oftentimes we hear it in our voice. But she made a point about language, about we think in the language that we were taught. Had we never been taught that language, we would not think in that way, right? Because that is something we absorb from our parents or whoever else. So it's like, had we not perceived that or received that information, would we have thoughts? Like, really think about that. If you never learned how to talk or if you've never heard speech, like, do you really have thoughts? Would your thoughts define you? Do you have like how we label things? Like, we can call this a water bottle because we've been taught that this is a water bottle. Whereas in like another language, this might be called something else, a word that we don't have the language for because we don't speak that language. So thoughts are our way of labeling and perceiving the world, but we've been taught to think that way. So really noticing those thoughts. So how I said in the last episode of like, who is thinking this thought? Where is this thought coming from? Is it coming from a thought of abundance? Is it coming from a thought of lack? So that, and so then, because I don't even know what time it is. What other, two other oh, something else from Minnesota 11. This might be a longer episode. Somebody asked me, do I find joy in this work? And when I originally answered that, I said, I don't really think so. Like, I'm just doing it to do it. But I do. I find so much joy in this work. And one of the things that one of my affirmations is that I am so grateful for work so fun. It's not work, it's play. And I think about how I've met so many beautiful people. We just be cutting up. And I really do have so much fun. Like, in terms of content creation, when I first got into this, I was like, oh, like, I just want to do foot worship and I want to do ignore content, right? Which ironically, I would say ignore content really doesn't sell that well for me. And it partially could be because I don't do enough of it. I don't like push it enough or whatever. Foot fetish here and there, right? But I never in a million years would have thought that sneezing would be my highest selling content. But I've had so much fun in just doing shit. Like, when I'm uploading certain content and you have to pick like the categories and stuff, I'll just see stuff like, I saw eye contact was a thing. So randomly one day I'm just like, okay, let me just stare into the camera. I'm staring into the camera for 10 minutes. That sells like hotcakes, right? And it's just fun. And then people are like, oh my God, like your eyes are so beautiful, or this, that, and the third. Or like, I have somebody who, my mouth soap boy, he talks about how, and I had another guy, he's like, I just don't understand how like you're so well at like your voice affliction. One minute you're talking like really seductive and how I would just torture you. And I bet you would really fucking love that, wouldn't you? You stupid little bitch. That's what you get hard on. That's really what you like, how I can just go from like this kind of sensualist vibe to like really torturous, mean, or whatever. And then right back to like, like really playful, right? And I think that that's so much fun. Like, I find joy in that. I find joy. Like, I had some videos where, I'm short. I'm only 1 3/4. Give me my 3/4. But so I have a couple videos out where I'm working with people who are taller than me. And I had one of my fans who's like really into my nose. He loves my sneeze content. And he was like, I would really love to see a video where you are sitting on one of your giant lady friends' laps and they're picking your nose. Like, this is a real request that I got, right? And I think there's so much fun in it. I think about how, like, people pay me to beat them up, people pay me to humiliate them or whatever else, and how I'm having fun traveling with my friends. Like, this work is so much fun. So I am grateful. And I'm grateful that I have built, I've been so serious about chasing this dream that I've been able to get here. So I have, and I find a lot of joy in what I'm doing. What else did I want to talk about? I keep looking at this. Um, so what I keep looking at and keep telling myself I'll bring it up. So back to the Bible. There's James chapter 1 verse 8 says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And then and I don't remember, and I'll post a link to this Reddit thread that I came across. But Neville Goddard, in one of his books, I don't remember which one it is, but he says, if you are dissatisfied with your present expression in life, the only way to change it is to take attention away from that which seems so real to you and rise in consciousness to that which you desire to be. You cannot serve two masters. Therefore, to take your attention from the state of consciousness and place it upon another is to die to one and live to the other. And so, basically, what that is saying is we can only live in one reality at a time. And so, a point that I brought up earlier that I don't think I actually finished was this idea. Oh, yeah, I didn't finish it. So, being present in this moment and understanding that everything that you want, you already have. And again, it's like, what do you mean? I don't have the money and I don't, right? When we are thinking, if we are not present in this moment, we're either thinking of something in the past and regretting it, grieving it, spiraling it, making ourselves feel bad about it. Or we are thinking of the future. And we are, we could be excited or we could be very anxious of how is this going to happen? What do I need to do? And so there's this spectrum. We're either grieving or we're anxious or some realm of those, but we're not present in this moment. And in this moment, you do have everything that you need. In this moment, the world is not falling apart, theoretically. In this moment, you have so much to be grateful for. You are grateful. If you are listening to this means that you can hear me to some capacity. If you are watching this means that you can see me to some capacity. If you're listening or watching to this means that you have access to a device that allows you to do it, which also means that you probably have some kind of Wi-Fi or some kind of internet service, that you have access to these things that some people do not have. You woke up this morning to be able to experience this, right? So understanding that gratitude, but then thinking back to, like, I was talking earlier about this fear of death that we all have, because it's like this death to what we know, who we know, whether, consciously we want to say like, oh no, I don't want this negative thing or blah blah blah, but subconsciously that's what we're used to. Like, yeah, consciously I don't want to be struggling to make ends meet. I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. But if that's all like, again, like I was saying last episode, what do you mean I can get paid to exist? What do you mean that I can just be out here living my best life and I really don't have to be present to make that money? Because all we've been taught, like from being in school, it started like, however your parents raised you, but if you went to a public school system or even a private school system, as a person who taught in the school, like that's part of the reason why I left the school system, because of how horrendous the school system is. I think, just with like everything, it has its pros and cons, but overall it's just like we are indoctrined to work 8 hours a day to produce something. We don't sit in like the process of things. We are taught to produce, that we are our results. We are what we push out. We are, we have to be up in the morning and we're expected at like, some kids have to wake up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to be to school by 7 o'clock in the morning, and then from 7 to fucking 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they are being fed information all day, not being allowed to process their emotions. Then if you add on schools, like I remember when I was teaching, I had a teacher, the school that I was at, we had a dress code, and it was like you're only supposed to wear like gray, black, and I think maybe white sweaters. This boy had on a pink sweater, and this teacher was so upset that I had him in my class with the sweater on. And I'm like, the nigga is cold. Like, the alternative is he is not doing the work that I gave him, because he's shivering and he can't focus. He can't regulate his body temperature. So like, and nobody in here is bothered that his sweater is pink. That is not stopping him from doing and completing the work. It helps him. It is an aid to him because he's not focused on whatever fucking else that he could be focused on, right? And so I think even just that is like this idea of compliance. Like, you have to meet these certain things, and it has to be this way, it has to block, like, you know. And so this we are taught from the beginning that this is how we have to show up in the world, or we won't get certain results. And so then when you start to have this, like, consciousness awakening, I would say, this remembering of our power, who we are, how the world works, it is a death to self. It is a death to the world that we know it. And that is scary, because that is change. But being able to notice that is a great thing, because you can see, like, okay, there is growth here. There's something here for me to notice and move through. And bringing up that double-mindedness is like, again, I can't. Oh God. Oh, y'all. Ooh, that was snot. I know somebody on it. Ooh, y'all, I got snot on my shirt. It's just, ooh. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back. That was crazy. That was a snot ball for real. But again, somebody on the internet just ate that up, literally and figuratively. um, but yes, double-mindedness. We can't be in two realities at one time. We have to make a decision and stick with that. We have to make a decision on placing meaning on something. Back to what I was saying earlier. It's like we can look at it as like, oh no, it's this negative thing. Or we can look at it like, you can reframe it. There was somebody that was like, they were in, I think, Thailand, and they were like on their last couple of dollars or whatever. And they were like freaking, at first they, no. Ooh, y'all. My paper almost flew off the balcony. Okay, that is my cue to start wrapping it up and go in the house. Because I have a meeting anyway. But they could have been like, oh my God, I have to hold on to this last dollar, or do whatever. But then the way they chose to reframe it was like, of course, this is my last dollar. Like, this is the last bit of that, like, lack frequency clearing out, because I need to make room for all the rest of the money that's coming in, right? And that might sound a little delulu, but honestly, delulu is the salulu when it's healthy delusion. But yeah, just looking at how we assign meanings to things and staying with that, because all information is neutral. It goes back to our thoughts and how we start assigning those thoughts to that meaning. So I'll leave that there, because we're at like 132, an hour and 32 minutes. The last point that I will make, y'all. So in episode 59, I was talking about how I was going to attach my blog in the links, right? About, excuse me, the real Mistress Goddess Princess and what that means. So I wrote a whole blog on it, and I attached it, but then YouTube flagged me, because I sat on it for a while, because when I originally wrote the blog, it's on my actual, like, adult website, like my booking website, and I didn't want to link that. But then part of me was like, oh, I'll just put like a note that this is for 21 and over, blah, 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 whatever. So I attached it, but then they was like, girl, no, you can't link that. And I was like, so then they blocked the video, but I guess I don't know. I got a warning. They said that they blocked the video, but then it's still showing up public. So I don't know. But anyway, But a while ago too, I was thinking about, when I came up with this persona, the real Mistress Goddess Princess, and I remember when I first came up with it, and I talked about it in some episode. I can't remember off the top of my head what episode it was. But I was talking about what that means. And so in the blog, I was breaking down that. So Temptress Mango, the real Mistress Goddess Princess. Temptation. Well, I'll start with mistress. So there's a couple different angles that I look at it from. Is me being multifaceted and me being able to kind of switch and adapt. So mistress is more of the strict, the more harsher one, right? The more like you want more intensity, versus goddess is just kind of like, you're here to worship me and I'm just, I am radiant and you're just grateful to be in my presence, versus princess, who is a little bit more of a spoiled brat and like, give me my fucking money right now, bitch. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, I get everything I want, I'm spoiled, right? And all of that is what makes it temptatious, because you never know what you're going to get. And I put that in quotation marks, right? Because everything is rooted in consent and certain people want certain dynamics. So that is the idea. But being able to kind of switch through those personalities, and even still, like, you might want to be more of, you might want more strictness, but that strictness doesn't have to be harsh. I could be softer with, but like still being strict on my boundaries, right? So that is the main idea of the real Mistress Goddess Princess, of being able to adapt. And I think even just this growth in the sex work industry, when I first came out, like when I look at who I was when I first started this, again, I say it a lot, I wouldn't have imagined any of this. But then there's also like this Pokemon connection, right? Because I think of Eevee, who has the most evolutions, and Eevee, depending on the trainer, depending on the environment that Eevee is in, that will show up how they evolve. So depending on the client that I have, depending on what kind of session they're looking for, depending on what kind of event I'm at, that is going to inform how I'm showing up in that space, right? And also thinking of temptation, like just electrifying, like, hey, I'm here, I'm the presence, I'm just like a big ball of energy. um so that was one way, and that's, I kind of go into that in that blog. But then it was a couple weeks ago where I was sitting down and I started thinking of like, okay, that's Mingo, but when I think of my everyday human self, and I never looked at it this way, I'm like, who is the real Mistress Goddess Princess and how does that show up, right? And I think of mistress being mistress and temptress. And I actually, let me write this, let me look, because I did write this down. It was like I just be jotting stuff down. But um I was saying that the did I write anything down for mistress? I don't know if I wrote anything down for mistress, but the goddess is my vessel in human experience. And thinking of my body, my human existence as, and this might be like really far left, like you're like, how do we get here, right? But thinking of the goddess as someone who needs to be revered and taken care of. And I think about how I said it last, like I've started perceiving myself almost as three separate parts. That was a that was a helicopter. So I hope you took that time to breathe. But I've started looking at myself as three separate parts to the whole human experience, the whole consciousness experience, right? And so looking at the goddess as my human self, of taking care of her, taking care of, checking in, and I am the portal through which all of my manifestations come from. It's the desires and the things and the wants in life come from, my inner child, and how things get done come from my higher self, or, mapping it out. And then it is my human self that we identify so much like we have to do this part, right? Because we don't understand all the different realms. I'm not going to go on that whole rabbit hole, but we our human day-to-day selves are so programmed to think that we have to have all the answers and that we have to figure it out, right? But we are really just what things are channeled through. We are the mirror. So looking at my human self as the goddess, and then looking at my child self as the princess, the person that is playful, that deserves to be spoiled, that didn't ask to be here and deserves to be loved for just being her. And then the temptress being energizing and magnetic and living, in a living invitation to surrender. So I would say in many ways that like my higher self is both the temptress and the mistress. I'm also processing this in real time, so if I'm like kind of stumbling and it doesn't make sense, that's kind of why, because I wrote this back in the beginning of February before I had even um recorded the last episode. But I felt like bringing that up because I was like, I be lying sometimes, but I don't always be lying. And I really did want to tag that blog, but YouTube was like, cut it out, bitch. And then, but I do have plans to write a more vanilla leaning blog, and then I'll probably link the original blog into that. I'm gonna wrap this up because I don't know what time it is. I don't want to touch that because then it might mess up the recording. This is getting long and I have to edit it. But what do I want to leave y'all with? Mango's message, because again, there's so much that I talked about and wanted to talk about that I didn't even really necessarily get to. Mango's message. I talked about a lot. I think the most relevant, and if you got nothing else from this, the power of gratitude and the power of awareness are two things that we don't connect enough with, that we don't pay attention to. And then the non-judgment. Awareness allows us to be non-judgmental, which also allows us to be grateful for those revelations in those moments. So what do you have to be grateful for? Yeah, what do you have to be grateful for? I would love to know in the comments. If you made it this far, I would love to know what you have to be grateful for. Yeah, and I'll come back in 2 weeks with more updates, because again, there were some things that I did not touch on. I'm gonna have fun listening and watching to this, because y'all, I be coming in here with a plan to talk about one thing and then be going off on tangents, and then that's when that like inner self and those thoughts and those judgments come in of like, girl, what are you talking about? What is why are you qualified to talk about this, or blah blah blah? Is this making sense? Are people going to perceive you? Are you going to have another person that comments on your videos that's like, you need Jesus, or da 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 da? you know you know but yeah, with that being said, y'all be safe, make good choices. For my listeners, make sure y'all are checking out the YouTube. I released, at the time that I'm recording this, I released my lock comb out video. I don't know when the next one will be, and then I have some plans for some other things. If there's anything that y'all want me to talk about, whether it has to do with art, whether it has to do with one of these consciousness things that I'm exploring, whether it has to do with domination and sex work, whether it has to do with locks, or whatever y'all would like to hear me talk about, put it in the comments, email me. twoscrippers1pole@gmail.com. Follow on Instagram, twoscrippers1pole. That's it, y'all. Did I say be safe, make good choices already? If I didn't say that, be safe, make good choices. Okay, bye.